welcome back to On the Couch with Katie, a space where we talk about mental health in a way that is real, relatable and just that little bit cosy. We talk about the difficult conversations that might be harder to have, all about the things that really make us human. Today we're diving into a really important but quite a tricky conversation all about toxic relationships. Now, let's start off and talk about what is a toxic relationship. They can be quite difficult to define, but let's be specific. Not every hard relationship is toxic. Conflict happens, miscommunication happens, but a toxic relationship is one where the connection repeatedly harms your mental, emotional, or even physical well-being. This could come in the form of emotional manipulation, control, constant criticism, passive-aggressive behaviour, guilt-tripping, or just a slow daily erosion of your self-esteem. For example, some people might say that they didn't even realise how toxic a situation was until they felt their stomach drop and their heart beat faster every time they received a text from a certain person. And remember, toxic relationships can actually happen in any context, in any kind of relationship. This is not limited to romantic partners. It can also occur with friendships, family, or even with colleagues in a workplace. It can also happen even within communities or groups that can claim to be supportive. Now, let's start off by talking about signs to look out for. Red flags that might suggest that a relationship is perhaps a little bit more toxic than initially perceived. For example, you may feel worse about yourself after spending time with them. They could cross your boundaries and make you feel guilty for asserting them. You could feel like you're always walking on eggshells around them, afraid to upset them by something you may do or say. They could gaslight you, making you doubt your own feelings or reality, and making you feel more like the perpetrator after asserting a situation that made you feel comfortable. The relationship could feel more one-sided, where you give and they take. And overall you could feel emotionally drained, not supported, and overall quite low and anxious when around them. Here's a key question to ask yourself. Do you feel safe, seen and respected in this relationship? The answer to every healthy relationship should be yes. And if you're doubting that, then perhaps let's look a little bit more inward and see how things could be improved. Now, a couple of episodes we spoke about setting boundaries, forgiveness and guilt, and how those can relate and intertwine when it comes to healthy relationships. We're talking about the flip side today, talking about things when they're not so positive and they're not doing so well, and how they can have an impact on our mental health, and therefore how we can improve things by even just saying goodbye, stepping away, or setting boundaries. Sometimes setting boundaries in really toxic relationships, however, don't always help, and sometimes the best way to set the boundaries is actually by stepping away. But it's not necessarily about pushing people away straight away. Sometimes we can improve relationships by putting these boundaries in place. They're about protecting your peace first and foremost. Some practical boundary examples could be, I'm not available for phone calls after 8 p.m, or even, please don't raise your voice at me. It makes me feel uncomfortable, and if this continues, I may have to leave this conversation. Or, that topic makes me uncomfortable, I'd rather not discuss it. These can be simple ways to show to the other person that you don't feel comfortable in that certain setting or environment. Hopefully, in a healthy relationship, the other person will be able to take this forward and change their behaviour accordingly. But if things are continuing to persist and your boundaries are being disrespected, then this could suggest that perhaps it's more toxic than initially perceived. Remember, when you set a boundary with someone who loves and respects you, they might not love the limit, but they'll respect you. When someone reacts with anger, guilt, or even punishment, that says more about them than it says about you. As I said before, not every toxic relationship has to end completely, but some do. And it's okay if you're not ready right away. Sometimes we need to build clarity, confidence, and support. So, for example, if it's a co-worker, it might be necessary to set professional boundaries or document interactions that might need to be raised to HR in the future, for example. If it's a friend, try honest communication. If they're unwilling to change, then create space. If it's a family member, set limits on time, topics of conversation, or frequency of contact. Boundaries apply even with blood. Often because these are the deepest connections as well, it can be harder to set these boundaries, but sometimes they have the heaviest weight on our mental health, so they're just as important, even more so than other relationships. If it's a partner, all of these boundaries can also be practiced, but remember to also seek support from external people in your life. This could be from trusted friends, family members, or a therapist, counsellor, or even a helpline that specialises in toxic relationships. We'll leave links at the end of this episode and in the bio below for helplines that can support when relationships become toxic or even abusive. They'll be able to help you seek support in the future. So, it's all well and good to identify when a relationship is toxic in the here and now, and once we've set boundaries. But sometimes these feelings can linger and it can be difficult to heal after a toxic situation. Once you step away from a toxic relationship, this is when the healing truly begins, and it's not always linear. You may grieve someone who hurt you, remember all the positive things, and unfortunately forget the negative things. You may question your judgment, but also feel hurt from the trauma that has been inflicted upon you. All of these feelings are valid, and it's okay. Here's what can help moving forward. As we suggested earlier, therapy or peer support groups, sharing stories with other people that may have experienced the same thing. You could journal about what wasn't right for you, what you didn't enjoy in a relationship, and also journal about what a healthy relationship really means to you, what you're looking for in the future. By having this down on paper, it can be really cathartic, be a positive release, and help give you clarity and perspective when moving forward in relationships in the future. You can also practice self-forgiveness. Now, this can be really hard when you're also juggling guilt and a lot of other emotions that are coming up. But being able to regularly affirm yourself, practice these affirmations and tell yourself that what you did was right for you in the moment, this is really, really important. Also, it's really important to remind yourself and relearn that it's okay to take up space. Now, this could apply within love contexts, with your needs, your flaws, and your overall boundaries. You are a human being that is enough and deserves to be recognised for all that you are. What can be tricky with toxic relationships is that toxicity doesn't always show up as yelling or fighting. Sometimes it's subtle, like constant criticism disguised as jokes, guilt tripping, or the infamous silent treatment. Toxicity can also wear a mask of love, concern, or even charm, but underneath it chips away at your mental well-being. Now, I want to share a story with you to see how it resonates with you. Now, I have a friend, let's call her Maya, and she shared a story about a relationship that she had with her boyfriend for 2 years, and how she came to terms with the fact that perhaps it had been a toxic relationship. Now, it started off being perfect at the beginning, thoughtful texts, flowers, sweet nicknames, but slowly things started to change. He started making comments about her friends, saying that they were a bad influence and that he didn't like her hanging out with them. He didn't like her clothes, claiming she was asking for attention, and when she brought up her feelings, he'd say she was overreacting or that she was much too sensitive. But there was a turning point. After speaking with friends and other trusted individuals, she realised that perhaps she wasn't the problem, and that there were more problems within the relationship than she initially realised. From that moment forward, she decided to go to counselling and decided to end the relationship to protect her own peace. Moving forward, her healing journey hasn't been linear, but she's been able to realise that this relationship wasn't the healthy relationship that she initially thought. With therapy helped her see the patterns of emotional manipulation, and with support she felt able to leave the relationship. She's now rebuilding herself, slowly but stronger. Toxic relationships are designed to make you doubt yourself. But remember, healthy relationships don't silence you, they support you. Now, just before we come to a close, it's important to look at the psychology behind toxic relationships, how they can occur and how they can make people feel so trapped. Why do they hold such power over us? One word, trauma bonding. Now, you may have heard this word before and wondered what it meant. It's when we form emotional attachments with someone who's intermittently kind and cruel. The unpredictability creates a cycle of hope and fear, and that cycle is addictive. Another reason, low self-esteem. Now, this may be a case when you approach the relationship, your self-esteem may be at a lower level, or it might be the case that your self-esteem is slowly being chipped away and it makes it more difficult to leave or assert your boundaries. If we don't believe that we deserve better, we're more likely to accept mistreatment. And sometimes childhood experiences can also normalise this dysfunction. If we don't know any different, then it feels like we have to put up with it. What we saw growing up might have taught us that love equals pain or control. But the truth is, love should never cost you your peace. Seeking therapy, journaling, and surrounding yourself with people who validate your experiences are great first steps. As we've said, healing is hard, but it is absolutely possible. Now, moving forward, if you're in a toxic relationship right now, here are some steps to moving forward. First of all, acknowledging the truth. No more minimising, excusing, or rationalising their behaviour. As we've talked about before, earlier on in this episode, set the boundaries. You're allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. Number 3, seek support. Talk to a trusted friend, therapist, or a support group to share with other people that are experiencing similar things. Number 4, plan your exit safely, especially if the relationship is abusive. Don't go through it alone. And 5, reconnect with yourself. Rediscover the parts of you that got lost in the chaos. Leaving a toxic relationship is not about hating the other person. It's about loving yourself enough to let go. If today's episode resonated with you, then know this. You are not broken, you are not weak, and you are definitely not alone. Recognising toxicity is not failure, but in fact, it's growth. For resources, check out our show bio to find out links to helplines and other resources to help support you through toxic and even abusive relationships. Remember, if no one has told you today, you deserve love that feels safe and you are not alone. Be kind to yourself, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of On the Couch with Katie. And we'll see you next time for more information on mental health and well-being that is accessible for all. Goodbye!